Hello and welcome to Justified Jewel Podcast. I'm your host and my name is Joanne Cox. I can be found on all social media platforms. And of course, you can reach me at my website, which is www.justifieddjewel.com. Here at Justified Jewel Podcast, we talk on various subjects, but the whole point is to make sure that we are enlightening each person in different areas. No matter where you live, no matter what your job situation, you can get something from the guests that I have invited and because of the topic that we're speaking on. Now, today, our guest is the one and only. She's been here before, so if you follow me, you will remember that this is Renee Machel, and she's going to tell you a little bit of something about herself. Renee.
Hi, Joanne. Thank you for having me again. It's so great to be here with you and the audience. So I am a speaker and a coach. I have two businesses and we focus on the well-being of professionals, of people, like addressing who we are as humans first before the hats that we wear in our jobs or in our lives. So I'm really excited to be here with you guys today. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me on, like you said, the different social platforms. And I'll send over contact information that after you're done listening to this podcast, you can look at the show notes and have a link to where you can get in touch with me if you decide to do that.
Okay. Now, what I didn't say is what is the topic for today? The topic for today is the importance of building a strong foundation. The operative word here is building and strong. So we're going to take it and we're going to dive right in. I want to start with business. Renee, tell me, what does it look like to build a business from a strong foundation?
Wow. That's a really great question, Joanne. So one thing that earlier in my life I struggled with was looking and, sort of this, it's like a cardinal sin, if you will, to compare yourself. Mm-hmm. But it seemed like I struggled in areas in life, in work, in school that other people did not. Mm-hmm. But instead of letting that get me down, I decided that if it was possible for them, it had to be possible for me because I was a really capable person. Mm-hmm. And so what I learned is that you can build, you can cultivate a skill set that you might have thought was something you were either born with or you weren't. But what we know now about business and about life and even personality to some degree, that there are skill sets and traits and attributes that we can embody. And so what I encourage people to do is, rather than having a to-do list, we all need those. They're very beneficial to our productivity, but start creating a to-be list. So this is something that helps us decide who we want to be and how we want to show up in the world. And through that, more effortlessly, almost like an organic byproduct, mm-hmm. our businesses and our ideal lives take shape. And so we start to build who we are. And to your point, like that strong foundation, we have to identify what that means to us right now with where we're at. Like you mentioned in the beginning, it doesn't matter what walk of life you're from. It's where are you at today in this moment? Who are you? And where do we want to go? Who do we want to be? What do we want to experience? What do we want to contribute? And through that, the other things begin to take shape. Mm-hmm. We can start to address parts of our character that work really well for us and parts of our character that we need to strengthen.
Yes. Yes. And with all that being said, we know that when we get started in business, there's so much that we don't know, but you don't know what you don't know. And so when we take off and we find ourselves in some maybe trouble situations, what are some suggestions you would have for entrepreneurs that they started on the wrong foot and now they need to step back or rebuild?
Yeah. So that is something many entrepreneurs ought to do almost proactively, is to step. I've heard this a lot over the past year. We are 5-6 years into the businesses. And if the saying goes, sometimes you can get lost working in the business versus on the business. And so as entrepreneurs, it is a valuable project, but also mindset to have, so that you are stepping back purposely, revisiting, whether it's quarterly, semi-annually, or even just once a year. And maybe it's every 5 years, at some increment of time, you are assessing where you're at, and figuring out if you are sort of on course to where you want to take your business. If you end up there by happenstance, you feel confused, you feel deflated, you feel like maybe things aren't working out, then absolutely stepping back is a tactic that you can use to give yourself some space to breathe.
Yes.
Maybe it's not figuring it out. If you are suffering from burnout, it's really difficult to find solutions, especially creative solutions, if you are in a state of chronic stress, because your brain, your nervous system, everything about you is in a survival mode. So if you feel like you're burning the candle at all of the ends, but you know that you can't stay here, you've got to give yourself some space to breathe, to where you're not necessarily figuring things out. You're just trying to recuperate, sort of heal a little bit, turn off, almost like you would an electronic, unplug it so that it starts to work. And then you re-engage. And you ride these different waves as an entrepreneur. I can't remember the author, but there's these things that we experience where you probably have felt this before. You felt more creative at a certain time of the month or a certain time of the year, where your creative juices are just flowing.
Yes.
And then there are times where you feel low. You feel like, what's going on, And rather than getting down on ourselves in those times, to just trust and know that there is something that we can learn from those times, but it's also temporary, right? If we apply mindfulness, there's a really great quote by a philosopher, and he says, change is the only constant. Everything is temporary. These states that we're in are temporary. And so give yourself the space that you need. Honor that for yourself, because especially as an entrepreneur, whether you have a business partner, a team, or if you're a solopreneur, giving that to yourself will be reflected in your business. And if your clientele, if you're transparent enough with your clientele, oftentimes they will love you even more for it.
Yes, it's called that honesty in putting everything on the table. And burnout is so easy, especially for entrepreneurs, to get in and not even realize that they're in that state. As entrepreneurs, what we realize is that we first have to be everything. We don't have the funds at the beginning to have that virtual assistant or that in-person assistant. So it's so difficult to run all of those different things by during that time. But when we talk about the word foundation, I think of building materials and really getting those things together. So when people are doing 9 to 5, and they've been taught with the comparison of what they need. You've got to have this background. You got to have the good resume. You've got to know the right people. 9 to 5 versus entrepreneurs. What are the materials? Where are the resources that we need to have a strong foundation, whether we're working for someone or we're working for ourselves? What are the materials? What do they look like?
Well, I think we have a couple sets of materials, and that is your business logistics. So, do you have the practical resources that you need in order to run your business? And this might look like technology. Some people call it like a tech stack if you're operating a remote business. This might be your website, your email domains, your online platform, your customer management system, your social media, those types of things, right? So do you have what it takes logistically? If you're running a brick and mortar, it might be a building. It might be the supplies that you have in order to meet your customers' needs. It might be computer systems. It might be a security system. So look at your logistics. What practical tools do I need to do my job? And then you have the support of, do I have, like we talked about in the beginning, what I need in order to show up each day to grow professionally and personally? And this might be spiritual. This might be books or podcasts that help educate you on operating businesses, sales, marketing, human resources, team management. It might be role models in this space. People who are experts at sales or online marketing or podcasting, right? Who are we listening to? What sort of content are we consuming during our work hours, but also in our off time? Is content that we're consuming in our off time supportive of how we're trying to operate within our businesses? Right? If you enjoy comedy because it makes you laugh and it releases tension, fantastic. But if you're watching shows that stress you out and work you up, and then you're on your lunch break and then you go back into work or something, you're going to be annoyed, not because of the client that's standing in front of you, not because of the project that you're doing, but because of, whatever you just consumed at lunch, whatever that might be that riled you up. And so the life wheel, there's this thing called the Wheel of Life. If you Google it, there's 8 to 12 categories in our lives that give us perspective of who we are as whole persons, whole beings. This is our relationships. This is our recreational. This is our business, our spiritual growth, our goals in life, all sorts of different areas. And if we're lacking in these areas, and I get it, right? I am a mom, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm in a dual entrepreneurial household. I mean, I get, sort of this strain. But if you've got one area of your life that you're putting all of your finite resources, energy, time, money, like those things are finite. If you're putting all of that into one area and everything else is suffering, that's sort of a red flag. But it gives you awareness so that you can slowly and surely reallocate whatever resources you have in order to discover those materials that you need, right? You don't know what you don't know. But if you start researching, you're going to, the algorithms will help bring things into your feed. Like if you're researching, what do I need to do X, Y, or Z? You're going to find those answers. If you're not seeking that out, then it's not probably going to come to you. But if you are utilizing the educational materials and webinars or sessions at your local small business area, if you're training to be a speaker and you haven't researched Toastmasters or something like that in your area, you're going to have a harder time. But when you start to ask these questions, you might even ask yourself, what questions should I be asking? Right? Albert Einstein says, if we want better answers, we have to ask better questions.
Yes. And I love this quote, and that is, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear.
Yeah.
And as you said, once you start with that one question, what it's going to do is create a domino effect. And it's going to lead you into other things that you are going to be needing in that business. Or
right.
Go ahead.
Because if we're at the start of our business, and you're just trying to LLC, that's your first step, right? But if you're established 10-year, or 50-year owner, and you're looking to exit from your business, then that's a whole different set of materials that you're going to need. Rich Dad, Poor Dad, that's a book. And he talks about these 4 quadrants that we are in as self-employed or entrepreneurs. And the goal is to sort of, like you said, get out of that 9 to 5, move over to entrepreneurial land. But if you want to get past having a job and you want to be the owner and you want to have other people working for you, then that set of materials becomes different, right? How we can shift to hire that first VA,
Yes.
And there's a huge range of options for us now with Upwork and Freelancer, or even, outside of the country, maybe at your local high school, if you're looking for a graphic designer. There's so many different ways that you can find creative ways to build either a team or at least get the business infrastructure down, if that makes sense.
It does. And you've answered so many questions that, again, a perfect example for me to just say certain things, and you can pick up on that and go to something deeper than in what I'm saying. So that leads me to this question. Whether it's 9 to 5 or you're an entrepreneur, you're going to have relationships. These are business relationships. Tell us how important it is to build a strong foundation with other people, relationship-wise.
Very important, right? I'd say level 10.
Yes.
10 out of 10, if you will. Because so I've spent 20 plus years in the veterinary industry. And a lot of people in that industry might think that it's all about the animals. But that is a common myth for people outside of the industry. And it's a common myth for the people in the industry. Because most of those animals come with a human attached. Even if you look at wildlife, you have to deal with the public. Even if you look at wildlife in other countries, like preservation of certain species, your client might be the animal, but you have to deal with the people who are a threat to that animal. And so your job is to educate and raise awareness on certain issues. And so in business, no matter what your product or service or client is, it is about building human relationships. And when we do that effectively, our jobs become easier. You can hone your ideal client easier when you identify these things, when you take notice of when you have a relationship with a client that does flow really well, because you want more of that. And you get more confident in establishing boundaries when your clients are too far outside of what that ideal is. Sure, everyone's going to be that ideal, but if there's someone who is clearly, sort of aggressively, crossing the boundaries in a way that you cannot work with them, that can be a very uncomfortable place for an entrepreneur to be, but it's not going to be the last time that you're going to be there. And so you have to come up with dialogue that helps you be sort of, well, for maybe, I don't know, lack of a better word, but diplomatic or professional, right? We're professionals. We have to be careful as the person in our jobs we're allowed to be emotional. We're allowed to have our emotions affected by the people that we work with, but it's still our job to remain professional about exercising those boundaries. And so you might have to let go of a client. You might have to change the way that you operate within your business. And you have to, re-educate what those hours of operations are or something like that. But also, if you're just building your business and you are looking to establish strategic partnerships, having really great relationships that can be relatable on a professional level, but also a personal level. We want to connect with humans. It is a driving factor of who we are as a species. Everyone wants to connect and feel a deep, true sense of belonging. And so I actually wrote on my goal list a couple of years ago, it's on the back of my door there, is that was an area of focus. I want for people to feel like they belong when they talk to me, when they work with my businesses. Even my guy's business, it's totally different than mine, but his people are, his people. And, you want to start to cultivate that. You want to build more into that. And when you're having conversations, whether you're at a conference or you're networking at a small mixer in your area or doing something virtually, we want to do things that create quality connections. And there's certainly going to be lots of different connections that happen, and the relationship isn't the same between everyone. And so some of that becomes, we trust that however it's working is sort of meant to be, if that, I'm sure it makes sense to some, but it might seem a little esoteric. But I'll tell you, if you try to force something to happen, sometimes it just blows up and it doesn't work out. And so if you kind of ease into certain areas like us, we have something that we've been able to come back to year over year. And even in the meantime, we don't talk often, but I feel like I could reach out and connect. Like I could connect with Joanne. I could ask her of something. I could bounce something off of her. I feel like you are a resource. You're a valuable person in my world, in my orbit. And that's how I want people to feel about me. And you need lots of different types of people to give you, advice or provide you with a sounding board, someone who can understand what you're going through, so you want to find lots of different people to build up a strong support network, because you'll start to ascertain, oh, I can't trust this person. I told them something and then person over here found out about it, and so you have to redefine what that relationship looks like. They are there to operate under this purpose, but I can't share X, Y, and Z with them, but I can share X, Y, and Z with this person and it be like a transparent relationship. So you start to navigate these nuances of different types of relationships, but you need a variety. You need mentors and role models, people who you've never met, but you just listen to, right? Maybe it's Oprah or Tony Robbins or, Gary Vee, some these people who are experts in their own area. And then you have people that you connect with on a more personal level, but your relationship building skills, that is an area that no matter what type of work we do, we have to at least put some resources in order to understand how relationships develop, how to nurture those relationships with your clients or with your team. And then, of course, how to, integrate some of these relationships so that your business thrives, so that you thrive.
That is absolutely wonderful. And here on this podcast, sometimes I will separate certain things like spirituality, physical health, mental health, wellness, and socially. Machel has wrapped all of this, Renee has wrapped all of this up together just under the topic of the importance of building a strong foundation. And I am always taking notes. And I always suggest that the listeners and viewers always write these tidbits down. But she's going to let you know how to get in touch with her. But I just want you to think about some of the highlights in the words. It's about skill sets. It's about the qualities that you're bringing for your foundation. The spirituality, because that is who you are and what you're working with. Of the wheel of life to navigate, redefine. When you fall down, you can get back up. My favorite word is bounceability. You can do this, and you're going to have some things that are going to take place. It's going to be peaks and valleys. You're going to integrate, and you need to redefine and have mentors. All of these are just key words that work for all people in all areas, whether you're entrepreneur, 9 to 5, whether this is about social building or your business. She has said it all, and we want to hear this over and over, but we want to hear from her as we end this so that we can know how to tap in and get more information from her on this subject and things that she has to offer. Renee.
I love closing this out on that. Thank you so much. The personal responsibility, I mean, it's a sense of empowerment. It's not meant to be something that bogs us down, but it's something that can really set us free. I know that might sound a little cheesy, but when we take responsibility for our foundation, for who we are, for, our businesses, things like that, it can really breathe a refreshing sense of empowerment to us and to our communities that we, work within. So I would love to connect with people. LinkedIn is a really easy place to find me. Renee Machel. My name is Renee. Last name is Machel. I am redesigning one of my sites right now. My other website is Get Motivated. But all of this is on my LinkedIn profile, so you can connect with me there. And of course, it makes it really easy to message me and, get a dialogue going or look at things that I'm posting or, writing in the newsletter and providing for people to grab and use these templates or, dive deeper on certain resources. So no matter where you're at, I hope that you feel like you can take charge. You can take charge and you have a personal power within you that other people, everyone has it, but it's unique to you.
It is. It is. I would like to thank you again for accepting being on Justified Jewel podcast. And I know that the viewers got a lot out of this because I did. And I will continue to reach out with Renee, and this is a close. So again, we have a new message every Tuesday. So make sure you tune in and you can look at it as many times as you like. So again, this is Justified Jewel podcast. And this title was actually the foundation, building a strong foundation, the importance of it, the operative word. So you want to be there. Thank you again, Renee.
You're welcome. And thanks for having me, Joanne.